Next week, the prosecution's final two witnesses are expected to take the stand in the first criminal trial of a former American president. Back with us, Ankush Khardori and Suzanne Craig.
We were in the break here, Suzanne, and at the end of the break, I was saying, you know, a lot has been made. People have said a lot of things about Michael Cohen, and I don't think he should have been on any podcast this week or TikTok, frankly. But I was like, I have faith in Michael Cohen that he is going to go in there and on the stand and do what needs to be done, because he is a person that went to jail for this. He has suffered immensely, right. and I think that Michael Cohen wants Donald Trump to, you know, have that accountability, and he knows that the documents are how that happens. I was making that case. Ankush was looking at me like, But I wonder what the both of you think.
It was kind of looking at it kind of funny. But.
You know, I agree with you, but I also think he's been doing some things that would suggest that he doesn't have the best judgment. I mean, that TikTok video that he made where he had a picture of Donald Trump in an orange jumpsuit behind bars. He went out weeks ago. And I gotta admit, I'm not following every beat of what Michael Cohen's doing in terms of what he's saying about Donald Trump on TikTok. But weeks ago, I did see a tweet where he said, I'm not going to say anything now about Donald Trump, you know, because of all the stuff going on with the gag order about Donald Trump. And then he's been poking the bear ever since. And I think there's so much at stake here. I'm just surprised that he's doing it, given that. I do think, though, once Monday morning comes, it's interesting that he's scheduled. It looks like the defense is saying, the government's saying that they could wrap their case by Friday, which means that it sounds like his examination could be fairly tight. A few days, and I think they're going to keep him to the four corners of the case and very much have him be a narrator for the jury through the documents. We're going to hear a lot about the checks, a lot about the agreement that he had with Trump about the hush money payment, and just things like we heard this week, you know, he would send emails over to the Trump organization saying, I'd like my payment and per my legal retainer. Well, there was no legal retainer, and he'll talk about things like that. But I hope you're right about it. I hope I'm sure he understands the gravity, but this behavior that he engages in is still perplexing to me, I guess.
Does Ankush agree? I don't know.
Well, yeah, because I'm going to set up the question for you, because I'm going to take the other side of this. I get it completely what Michael Cohen's doing. You know what? And I approve, baby boy. I approve. You know why? He's working the head. He knows the man. Everybody who's testifying in this trial, who's involved in this trial, he is the one man who knows the man. And he knows the buttons. And he knows doing that TikTok video and saying all this stuff. When he gets in that courtroom and there's the mano-a-mano moment, oh, baby, it's going to be rich. And I think there's a psychological game that's being played here by Cohen to a certain degree. Yeah, he's going to do the testimony stuff. But the setup, for me, the setup was when he said, no, I'm not going to say anything. I'm like, yeah, you are. Of course you are. Because that's Michael Cohen, and that's their relationship.
Yeah, so that may be... that may be accurate on the...
I'm just talking about the man. Have y'all watched Michael Cohen?
Yeah.
You know Michael Cohen? Where am I wrong on this?
That may be accurate at the level of human psychology and politics. It is a terrible idea as a legal matter. Terrible. What? Terrible. Okay. Well, here's why. The prosecutors have been... They said yesterday, they've been asking him. And I'm not surprised at all. I would have been yelling at him, pleading at him to cut it out for years now. So we have now... But he has disobeyed those instructions. Right? And if you take the...
And so has Donald Trump.
Okay, but the jury is now going to be asked to trust Cohen, not Trump. And if you adopt the worst possible spin, even in the spin, or not spin, excuse me, but your thought... Your thought about what might have been going on with Michael Cohen, then he lied again last week to the public. That is not helpful to him when he's about to take the stand. And, you know, it's not even an academic question, because there's going to be a through line that the defense is going to pull through here, right? Which is that Michael Cohen also thinks he can say and do whatever he wants. He's lied to every branch of the federal government. A couple months ago, a federal judge concluded that he had perjured himself.
Right.
He is
and we know that Cohen will say in the service of Donald
Trump.
That
is not true either.
But that will be his
If he does, that'll be a lie. Because when he lied to the Justice Department to try to get time off his sentence, that wasn't for Donald Trump, that was for him. When he lied to the IRS on his taxes, that wasn't for Donald Trump, that was for him. When he lied to his bank, that wasn't for Donald Trump, that was for him. So he can't, that is not going to work. And so I hope for his own sake that he abandons that line because it's false.
This does not, hold on now, this does not sound good for Michael Cohen. I am concerned for him. Even Sue was like, yes, correct. I'm like, this is concerning.
I think the legal beagles at the table
Michael,
are doing
come
what
on.
the legal beagles do. But I think this is also a matter of public performance. I get the whole thing with the jury.
Yeah.
Don't know how much of the jury saw or heard of any of this.
Well, hopefully they saw
Michael,
nothing,
give me 1
to.
second on this one, because
Sure.
you know what, this is, I think both things can be true, but this is not a grade school fight. This is a court proceeding. And it's going to matter next week. And it's true. I mean, some of the things that Michael Cohen has done have been in service of Donald Trump. But there are other things that he has done that have been about him. He went to jail partly for tax evasion that had something to do with something else. And I just think we're going to see, if he continues to speak out this weekend and do these things, we're going to see a cross where all of this is going to be brought up. And it's going to have been going, they're going to be able to say this has been going on while this court case has been going on. I think, I think if it was just a public dispute, it's fine. But in a court case, you risk serious damage by doing it, to the point where the judge said to the government lawyers yesterday, ask him from me to shut up.
There was that.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's what he said.
Tell him to shut up.
At the end of the day, Donald Trump hired Michael Cohen. So if they want to make him, a sleazy villain who can't be trusted on cross, this was still your attorney. So
I still think he can be a really good witness. I want to get that out there. I think he's going to be effective. He knows the narrative. The documents are great, but they don't go to intent. And the witnesses have got to bring us to the table on intent for the jury to come back with, a verdict of guilty. We don't know where it's going to go, but these witnesses are very important because the documents do a lot of work, but we still need intent.